Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our book study. You are the happiness you seek. I'm looking forward to this conversation with Jenny Beal, who is back again. Hi, Jenny. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Bill. Hi, everyone.
Well, if you hadn't read your notification, we updated the schedule. So you see, we changed out a few people, and I mentioned it last week, and we updated the schedule in an email that went to you today, and then also you'll find it updated on billfree.com and in your member area. So you'll see, who was pulled out. We only made a few adjustments to it. It's not a big deal. But this week is chapter 12. Who is it that suffers? And I was telling Jenny before we opened up the room and started the recording that I'm really happy that Rupert touched on this the way he did. It's important to recognize the activity of the ego, and also is the that's the part that's illusory. It's not that this experience is so much an illusion, because it definitely is a real experience, relatively speaking, to the bodysuit. But the thing that's the illusion, is the um, the structure, the thing that we think that we are is the thing that's illusory, because we're starting to understand and realize that we are that which is essential to all experience, as consciousness, as awareness, as I am. And Jenny, thank you for being here whenever we need a substitute. You and Susan and others have been helpful in that way. I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to sharing chapter 12 with you. Where would you like to start?
Well, let's start with the quote from Rumi, and maybe look at the implications of that a little bit more broadly. He says, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love." And when I read that, it reminded me of the first of Rupert's meetings that I went to in Oxford, when I asked about what practice should I do. And Rupert said, "At every moment, just do whatever you most want to do. Might be to meditate, might be to watch a movie or to go out with friends. But it's always in the moment, it's always now, and it's always what you want now more than anything else, given obviously the circumstances. Some things might not be possible now. So it doesn't have to be spiritual, because there's no real division into spiritual and non-spiritual, and any action that comes from happiness is spiritual. So there's no I should in this path. It's a path of enjoyment. And in a way, that quote for me now almost sums up the whole of this path.
Mm. Would you say that quote, what he said to you again?
He said, "At every moment, just do whatever you most want to do."
I just want to think about that for just a minute, just sort of rest in that, because often I've heard people say, and I've thought myself, that that's the thinking mind. That's the impulse of the ego. So where would you draw a line?
I think it doesn't come from ego. It is well, normally wouldn't. It is because the ego doesn't really stand in the now. It's just an impulse that comes from happiness. Well, whatever it is, I mean, it might be to go and get a cup of coffee, or have a piece of chocolate, or whatever it might be. He gave all of those sorts of examples, you know. It's whatever you want, most want in the moment. So you're not thinking, what do I want? There's no sort of thought process that's going on. It's just an immediate impulse in the now, and that comes from happiness.
Yeah, that's that's brilliant. Yeah, I took advantage of knowing that you were going to respond in that kind of a way, because uh, refreshing to hear the ideas that are being expressed that open our experience to truth in a way that can trust that spontaneity is the is the is part and parcel to awakening, to understanding the ideas that are being offered.
Yes.
Yeah, great. And I like the expanded view, Rupert's words that expand on this Rumi quote. Thank you.
Mhm.
Awesome. Where else would you like to look? You want to look at the question?
Yes, let's start with that. If our essential nature is inherently peaceful and happy, why do we suffer so much? And this must be a question that all of us have asked at some point, I'm sure. And Rupert first distinguishes between physical pain and psychological suffering. He says psychological suffering arises on behalf of the belief that we are a separate and independently existing self. Imagine, for instance, that somebody says something and we are hurt by it. Who or what is hurt? The body is obviously not injured by the words. They do not harm our ears or our head. And the open, empty space of awareness is not hurt. The words sail through it like a bird in the sky, without harming it in any way or leaving a trace on it. So it's really by questioning the validity of the belief to be a separate entity that we undermine the whole basis of suffering.
Yeah. And the thing I really am drawn to is um, the importance of establishing our primary essential position. The importance of that is allowing life to occur, life to happen without it without wanting it to be different, and yet the the being established as the essential beingness, it brings I don't know, it brings a new experience, or it has the ability to relieve the suffering.
Yes, but I think one point that I think is worth emphasizing is that it's really best to do the investigation of what we really are when we're feeling happy and relaxed, not wait until we're suffering and then say, oh, I better meditate, I better do this investigation. And if we keep coming back to that understanding during peaceful times, then it's much easier to go back to it when we are suffering. Otherwise, if you wait till you're suffering until you do the investigation, then often you find that mind is going to put up a bit of a fight. Say, well, yes, he did say that. Yes, it was awful. Yes, he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just you're sitting down quietly, relaxed and happy on your own, and you just look into what you really are.
Right. Yeah. And also, if you do it as a means to try to undo something, then you're trying to manipulate and you've joined the experience even deeper.
Yes, if you try to manipulate, then yes, you're really reinforcing the sense of being a separate entity.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The next, there's the next paragraph. Paragraph 4 has starts out with yet something rises up in us between awareness and the body and says, on whose behalf all afflictive emotions arise. And so who is it? Who is that I? No, I guess I skipped a sentence there. It says, yet something rises up in us between awareness and the body and says, I feel upset. Who is that I? It is an illusory entity, the separate self or ego, on whose behalf all afflictive emotions arise. And so this is what we were saying a minute ago, where illusion, it's the illusion of identity. This is where the illusory self resides. It's an illusion of what we of who awareness or who I am thought itself to be is the only thing that's illusion.
Yes. Yes.
So it's just a distinction so that we can self-realize, really.
Yes. And for me, I tend not to use the word ego and separate self very much anymore. I did initially in sort of the early stages of this path, but somehow it doesn't have any meaning. I think you get to a point where it doesn't really have any meaning to you anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the same. There are words that sort of drift out of your daily use. They sort
Yeah.
of you don't purposely or intentionally stop using them. They just lose their application in your experience.
Yes. Yes. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's great. It's like the headache that goes away. You go,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't really know when the headache stopped. It's just not there anymore. There
Yeah.
was a comment from Rosalind. Hi, Rosalind. Good to see you. She says at 12:10, I know Rupert says that the ego does not live in the now, but I have heard Muji say that voice that says, go ahead and have that drink, even though you have been sober for 30 years, is not your true self speaking. Can you explain further how impulses other than the happiness gravitation pulling you back also seem to speak in the now? Great question.
Yes. Yes. Well, the thing is that it's awareness that says, "Go ahead and have that drink," even though you've been sober for 30 years. There's no right or wrong in awareness, and if that's what you most want to do at that moment, you will end up doing it. Um, so I think I don't really agree with Muji that some things come from your true self and some things come from not your true self. Everything comes from your true self. And really, as far as drinking is concerned, and for people who've had drinking problems, then actually the same sort of thing applies in this chapter. First of all, you find out um, all the damage that drinking can do to your body, to your relationships, to your family, and you understand that, and that provides a motivation for saying, actually, I'm going to stop drinking now. But that's not a spiritual. I don't see that as a spiritual decision and a right or wrong decision. Same if you're overweight. And you realize all the different reasons why it's better to have a healthy weight and to eat healthy food. That you're, as Francis says, you're the manager of your body. So it's just intelligent to be a good manager of it. So what you could investigate in that moment, though, is that if awareness is bringing up that thought, go and have a drink, is that because there's some underlying sense of lack, which has somehow sort of trickled up to the surface, but you don't quite know what it is. Mm-hmm. And it's worth really, instead of sort of labeling that thought as being a bad thought, instead saying, no, that's actually a useful thought, because that's what that's doing, is it's pointing me to that sense of lack, which has driven, which has caused that thought to arise. So what is that sense of lack? And then you look into that, and its sense of lack is one of the roots of the separate self. Because if you know that drinking is bad for you and it's bad for your relationships, you know all the damage that perhaps it has done for you in the past, and you've seen all the damage that maybe it's done for other people that you know, then it's stupid to go on drinking, isn't it? So the fact that you are inclined to be stupid in that way must point to a deeper sense of lack.
That's good. That's good. I think the fact that, the backstory that someone has an issue for 30 years should be a clue that all impulses aren't the same. And if it's coming from a place that has an issue with that, maybe, the other question I've heard Rupert say is, on whose behalf is this this spontaneous impulse coming? Well, it would be the one who forgot that it has a drinking problem, and or something to that nature. And good sense needs to. I think when you rest in the question, that there would probably be an override.
Yes,
that would say, that may not be a good idea for this bodysuit to take it, or maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. I used to have a drinking problem, and I had a voice in my head in 2009 when I had a full bottle of wine in the refrigerator. When I would get drunk, I would get really drunk, stupid drunk, and do stupid things. And I remember in 2009, I was getting ready to fill a glass of wine in a glass, and I had that voice in my head that said, "When you drink that, you can't hear me." And I knew the me was the I am. That was the last drink I ever had. I mean, actually, I didn't even have that drink. I poured that bottle down the drain, and I never picked up alcohol again. And so that was and that's a certainty that I know was true. It was a true statement. So I don't drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rosalind, did you have something you wanted to add to that? I know that your mic unmuted. Go ahead.
I thought after I wrote that question, I looked at the Rumi quote, and the last part of it says, "What you really love." And then that brought up the difference between an impulse that may be out of conditioning or lack, or a way of empirically you had resolved that lack in the past, just a pattern, versus what you really love, which is something different.
Yes, exactly. And it's just
Yeah.
it's seeing that sense of lack, and certainly it starts as a pattern. But then, if it's a pattern that you see as bad and it's hard to get rid of it, then there will be a sense of lack behind it.
And I also find that conditioning with no motivation any longer still comes up sometimes, and it means nothing. I can let it go as that's nothing. That's old. That's just a passing old thought, an old way of dealing with something is to go and have a something to fill it. Yeah. So thank you. This is very, very lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you, Rosalind. There's one more question that should be answered because it's from a statement that you made, Jenny, from Andrew at 12:18. Why is there a deeper
Why is there
sense
a
of
deeper
lack?
sense of lack? It's because the sense of lack it's one of the two roots of the separate self, the fear of death and the sense of lack. It's not always easy to see what the sense of lack is, but certainly if you find that you're addicted in some way, that there's addictive behavior which you know is not good, is not good for your body or not good for your mind, then that if you really look at it, you will find that there is a sense of lack underneath it.
Yeah.
It's an inquiry that's important to make, but to make not so much with your mind, but just to try and feel that, to rest as being and feel yourself as infinite, the infinite awareness that you are, and then just see where is that sense of lack. And sometimes something will just come to the surface. It might be that it's been triggered by something that's happened in your current circumstances. Might have been something even quite trivial that's happened in your current circumstances. An email that you received that upset you a little bit. You said, well, it doesn't really matter, but somehow it touched you, and that caused you to go and have a drink or whatever it was. Or it might be something much, much deeper, which is more a feeling, I'm not good enough, I'll never be good enough. I can't do all these things that other people can do. I should be able to do better, but I can't. So things like that are very much deeper than just a current circumstance.
Good. Yes, and it looks like William has his hand up. William, what do you have to say on that?
Hi, Bill. Can you hear me?
Yep. Good to see you.
Great. I just wanted to say I was talking to Rupert in a meeting several years ago, and for some reason, when these situations occur, this separate self-thought form can come up as I like to call him the little judge. And it's like a form of Puritanism, or I'm better than, holier than thou. And it's very deceptive and tricky how, this can happen. I mean, inherently, there's nothing wrong with wine. People have been drinking wine, and it's actually not that bad for most people to have a glass of wine at dinner or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But what's worse is I think for us, is these separate selves taking on the role of being the judge of humanity, of what is right and wrong, and what type of behavior is, I mean, because that, I called it a judgmental prig, P-R-I-G. It's just like, it's just another form of the ego that is probably more harmful than having one glass of wine, unless you're an alcoholic, of course, and
Yeah.
can't stop. Anyway, I just like to throw that in because
Thanks.
it's important that we realize that these activities are not always as bad as that one piece of chocolate, that one glass of wine,
Yep.
isn't something to get all angry and judgmental with each other about. Thanks, Bill.
That's
Thanks,
really
Jen.
great. I'm so happy that you brought that in, William, because I didn't mean when I said what's good for Bill in 2009 that that's everyone needs to stop drinking or stop smoking pot or whatever you're doing. That to me, Bill has the behavior thing that happens when this bodysuit drinks alcohol. It's not good, and it's better if it doesn't. So, and that's recognized. That was recognized back then from my teenage years. This bodysuit just doesn't and it doesn't know when to stop. So it's just a better experience for this one to abstain, and but also your comment is very well is pointed to. That doesn't mean everyone needs to do that in any regard, and also, we do have this. We have access to this infinite intelligence that knows what's in our best interests, and it comes just as Jenny said. It comes with a feeling and a knowing. Once you're established in the understanding, it comes as a whole brand new way of experiencing life in this bodysuit. But thank you, William. That was awesome, and thank you for your. This is a this is a high level interest to a lot of us, and especially from the statements that are being made by me and Jenny. And thank you all for your comments. Jenny, I think we should move on to page 92. What do you think?
Yes, the activity of the ego. So Rupert explains that in believing ourselves to be a separate entity, we feel incomplete, and that's really what I was referring to, the sense of lack. And that incompleteness leads to the activity of seeking. He says this illusory self, feeling itself to be a fragment rather than whole, is always seeking to complete or fulfill itself through the acquisition of an object, substance, activity, circumstance, or relationship. As such, seeking is the means by which the ego attempts to restore its innate wholeness. And most of us do start by seeking in the wrong places, in objects, activities, relationships, as he said. And then at some point we turned towards a spiritual teaching. So some come directly to the direct path, but most of us, I think, didn't. So seeking in itself isn't a bad thing. It's not something we should try to stop doing. Initially, we might conceptualize it as me seeking happiness. But as Rupert goes on to explain, it's really happiness putting us towards itself, towards ourself. It's just that initially we don't recognize that. So if we try to stop seeking, then it's denying the call of our true self. So that's quite a tricky aspect of this path. If we engage in meditation or self-inquiry to get rid of suffering, it doesn't work. Those those activities need to come from happiness, going rather than going towards happiness.
Yeah. And you know, the idea that Andrew mentioned something at 12:20 that I thought was really good. He said, I used to think cravings wouldn't go away unless or until I took a drink. And the thing that I notice about people that have cravings, whether it's drink or food or candy bars or whatever, when that is when that's noticed, the craving is noticed, no matter what it is. That pull, that impulse, and then if you're an addict, you see the guilt right behind it, right behind the desire or the shame or any of the things that come with it. And this understanding, when you bring your attention to the awareness of the experience, it actually eventually stops being a craving. It eventually stops being an energy that is a pull that to do the thing that you don't want to do. And you remember that there's a New Testament verse that Paul said that I don't know why I do the things I don't want to do, and I don't do the things I do want to do. It's a well-known verse. He was perplexed. He didn't know about the ego. He didn't know about the essential self. He was doing the same thing that all of us do, and didn't have the tools that we have. That is just resting as awareness, and then the craving does somehow it stops.
And what William said is really important about not judging, because we don't choose our thoughts, we don't choose our cravings, we don't choose whether or not we actually satisfy those cravings. So there's no reason to judge ourselves. We can just look at what's going on. All of it comes from awareness, the beautiful, wide, open, empty awareness that we are. All of it. There's nothing good, and there's nothing bad. And I think seeing it in that light really does change things. It's often when we judge, then you get the mind arguing both ways. Oh, I shouldn't have a drink. Oh, but I really want one. Oh, I'll go and get one anyway. Oh, that was awful. I shouldn't have done that. And it's just seeing that it's ludicrous to judge our thoughts. It's ludicrous to judge our behavior also. And equally, that applies to anyone else, judging their behavior too.
Yeah. Well stated, everyone. Thank you. Yeah. And what did William call it? That little prig?
Very good, William.
That's funny. I love that. I'm gonna keep that one. That's a keeper. So let's
Judgmental prig.
It's what?
Judgmental prig. I call him the little judge, and there's a little accountant who always has to spend money carefully and not spend too much or be all worried. They're all part of the same thing.
Good.
Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, William. Let's move to page 93. What do you see over there that we want to look at, Jenny?
Right. So Rupert goes on to discuss the causes of suffering. So that's psychological suffering, which are the seeking and resistance. He says all psychological suffering is an extension of the two primary activities of seeking and resistance, which are in turn the outcome of the belief in being a temporary, finite, separate self. Suffering is, as such, the inevitable consequence of the overlooking or forgetting of our true nature, whose nature is happiness. And there's this lovely line: happiness is the nature of awareness, suffering is the activity of the ego.
Yes, yes, really good. Seeking and resisting are the defining characteristics of the separate self or ego. And therefore, the ego is always trying to escape from its current, let's see, turn the page, from its current experience into the past or future. Thus, the ego considers the now to be the cause of its suffering. Therefore, it is always trying to avoid it. I thought that was the thing that really drew my attention on that is the seeking part, because we're getting ready to open the conference, the end of seeking conference, and in my mind that's a yeah, I'm going to use this word. That's a good kind of a seeking, but it's also a seeking. It's trying to avoid the current circumstance, but in seeking for relief, right? And that seeker ends up, it's on a perpetual loop, even as a seeker for truth. So even that seeker has to eventually it goes away.
Well, I think it does in a sense, and I think in another sense it doesn't. I think there's a kind of seeking which is non-egoic, and I think that sort of seeking, for example, is what is behind a lot of scientific inquiry. A lot of scientists love what they're doing. It comes from happiness, that seeking for answers. And I mean, most of them know that they're only formulating models, mathematical models of the universe, but they love it, they enjoy it. So there's that kind of seeking, and that's it is a sort of seeking for truth. It's a kind of seeking for a deeper understanding. And there are different teachers take a different views on this. Some of them are very much into continuing inquiry, a deeper inquiry after awakening. And inquiry, I mean, Francis says inquiry never ends. So it's I think we shouldn't say all seeking is bad, but seeking that is trying to change your current experience, that's the kind of seeking that really disappears after awakening. And I think that distinction is important to make. And there's another distinction similarly about resisting. There are some things which it's natural to resist, and we should resist if we have an opportunity to resist. So a lot of anger, for example, is sacred outrage. It's natural to feel anger when we see abuse of a person or an animal. And that's sacred outrage. Maybe you can do something about it if we're actually there at the time. Maybe we can't. But either way, we will still feel that sacred outrage, and that's a totally natural feeling. And also resisting, there are natural preferences. So for example, I have a preference for quiet environments, and if I'm in a noisy environment, then I tend to move away if I can. If I can't, I don't mind. It doesn't matter. It's absolutely okay. So but there's a natural kind of resisting if there's an opportunity to move away from a noisy environment. And in all sorts of things, people have preferences for different foods, and they will resist eating certain foods because they just don't like them. So it's I think we have to be careful that there are some kinds of seeking and resisting which are definitely egoic, and there
Yeah.
are other kinds which aren't.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that explanation, Jenny, in all of those areas. And in the seeking part, I'm not seeking, but I am loving discovering truth.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not seeking for what I am any longer. And I think that awakening is that once you realize the self-awareness, self-presence, it becomes a delicious appetite that makes you super happy to hear the expansion and the as we talk about these ideas, they're just they the truth just rings of itself, and it does bring happiness to talk about it.
Yes, exactly. And but also to explore it in all sorts of different ways. A lot of people, if they've come to an understanding via one particular path or one particular teacher, they will go and read something else, perhaps just inspired by a friend, says, well, have you read this book? This is really good. And you just read it, not to, not because you're seeking, but you're interested, and you are discovering, oh, that's a new way of expressing it. That's something I hadn't really fully embodied within myself before. So I think that kind of openness is and openness to new influences, openness to new ideas is what is really important right the way through the path, before awakening and after awakening.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I've said this before. That's why I love to do the book studies, because it just it brings us into a different way of seeing or being, and this is new to a lot of us. These ideas, they weren't mainstream. They're not mainstream yet, but they're moving in that direction, and I feel that this is a spiritual renaissance that's occurring in humanity. I feel that this is a new beginning, and that's why I'm so inspired for the teachers that are coming online to reinforce these ideas for us. It's just a beautiful thing where humanity is unfolding into a spiritual renaissance.
Yes.
Exciting.
Mm.
Well, let's see. We're finished. I think we ended 93. Let's move on to page 94. What do we see there? Anything on that?
Yes. What he's saying is that, well, really what we call ego, or the separate self, is just a habitual thought that we believe to be true, and trying to get rid of any kind of thoughts never actually going to work. It's always going to make the situation worse. So he says any attempt to get rid of the separate self is predicated on the belief that it exists as such to begin with. And in the ultimate analysis, such efforts substantiate its apparent existence. The separate self perpetuates itself by trying to get rid of itself. And I remembered a story from the Shankaracharya. A man comes walks the long dusty road to a teacher, and says, oh, teach me about the self. And the teacher says, well, before I do that, just tell me anything you saw along the road. And he said, well, I saw a dead donkey. And so then the teacher says, well, go away for half an hour and just get rid of that thought of the dead donkey. And of course the man can't do that. And what he's teaching is that you can't choose your thoughts, you can't get rid of them. And that's really one of the deepest teachings of all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that you stop trying.
You stop trying, yes.
You stop trying and you allow, this is what, Byron Katie, whatever happens, I don't mind. Or just the idea of not, of not trying to change your experience and
Exactly, yes.
coming to an understanding where you are not your personal self identity.
Yes. I mean, awakening is nothing to do with changing your experience. All it is clear seeing. It's nothing more than that.
Right.
And he says on page 95, all that is necessary is for us self to know itself clearly before it is colored, qualified, or limited by any experience. All that is necessary.
Yes. Yes. That's in the second paragraph on page 95.
Yes.
This really summarizes everything we've said right here.
Yes.
That one sentence, all that is necessary. I love those 3 words. Is it 3 words? No, it's 4 words. All that is necessary is to discern that I clearly. That is all that's necessary for ourself to know itself clearly. And once that's established, nothing else to know or do or be, or you're just right there. And also, when I say, even when we say stay there, that's a concession. That's not necessary.
Yes, and in fact, earlier he gave that analogy of the rubber ball and being the rubber ball being compressed, and then release the tension. Then automatically you go back there.
Yeah.
So it's nothing that we have to do.
Yeah. The question, I think we pretty well answered the questioner that said, I understand that the sense of separation is an illusion. However, it is such a strong feeling, and it seems almost impossible to get rid of it. And that's pretty much the human condition. Everyone has the same story. Well, how do I stay in alignment? How do I stay present all the time? How I keep losing awareness and I can't, how do you stay in it? And that seems, that's a common theme that, most everyone that I know on the path is over 30. And so you have many, many, many years of habitual conditioning that everyone wants to lose it in the first year or the first couple of years. How do I get rid of these old habits?
Yes, and actually most conditioning is absolutely fine. There's only certain types of conditioning which really revolve around the belief to be separate, which are not. So a lot of our conditioning, they will always stay with us. It's absolutely natural.
Yes, it doesn't need to leave. That's the mind wants to change the behavior to change the experience. And really, once one knows the true self, then the experience doesn't even need to change because the suffering stops.
Yes, yeah.
And then when that occurs, it may or may not stick around.
Yeah.
So moving halfway down on page 95, there's the three dots. The questioner says, and this may not be the same questioner, but it says, you mentioned once that we don't really age.
Mhm.
I love this.
Yes.
But I certainly feel that I am getting older every day.
Mm.
Uh,
Well, I mean, obviously our body ages and we accumulate more skills and experiences throughout our life. But that's not the same as my essential self aging. So we can think of our essential self as being that which is always the same. It can't age. On page 96, he says, awareness knows nothing of time or aging. The ideal of eternal youth has been downgraded by our culture to imply a body that looks perpetually young. To be eternally youthful means to know and feel oneself as ageless awareness. So for a body mind, time exists and aging exists, but if we understand we're not a body mind, then we don't age.
right, right. Yeah. The question is coming from someone that is not really established in the understanding as yet.
Yes, they may have had a glimpse of the understanding. It when we talk about establishment, I think that proceeds in different ways in different people. So I think it would be possible to have had a very profound glimpse of our true nature.
Yes.
Without really having addressed this. It's only when you really address it within yourself, within awareness, and really look at it. There are some things that people don't look at initially before they're awakened.
Yeah.
They look at them afterwards.
Well,
It's
and
not
that's why I had a recent conversation with Rick Archer and a few others. Rick is the one of the founders of Buddha at the Gas Pump, and we were talking about the End of Seeking conference, and he said, "I don't know if it's a good idea to come to the end of seeking. It's kind of what you were saying a few minutes ago. It's okay to keep seeking. You're really it seems to be an expanding, gradual understanding that sort of it takes your life over, and you're
yeah
no longer seeking. You're just more curious about because this experience of awakening it's never going to end. It shouldn't. It's never. You're never finished. How could there be an end to eternal presence?
Yes, I mean, I spent 2 weeks in Spain on Francis's retreats, and the vast majority of people there are awakened, and most are pretty well established in that. But there's all sorts of joyful exploration that still goes on, and we all learn different things from each other, and it's beautiful. And I don't think there was anyone there that felt there was really an end to that kind of exploration.
Yeah, yeah. It's the joy of understanding. It's the joy of hanging out and saturating your experience, being saturated in the ideas of presence, of awareness, of the language of awakening. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes, yes.
So the questioner, and I don't know if it's the same questioner, says, but it sounds like it's like an ongoing conversation. But I experience time. What about that?
Yes, I mean, well, you'll discover in when you listen to my interview with Donald Hoffman, why even scientists say that space-time doesn't really exist at the level of consciousness, at the level of awareness. It's something that's superimposed, what he calls an emergent property. And so Rupert says, awareness only knows now. The mind imagines time. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And what Jenny's talking about, she is the interviewer for Donald Hoffman, the scientist. He's a UCLA professor of cognitive psychology, and he's one of our speakers at the upcoming conference, The End of Seeking. And he's also going to be in the documentary that we're putting together this year to put on Gaia next year. But Jenny has agreed to be his interviewer. She's so brilliant in her careful investigation of, especially, science. That's why I asked her to interview Bernardo for the last conference, and she's going to do it again with Donald Hoffman and some others. But he's the main. I don't want to, when I have someone that is Jenny's caliber available that would interview someone like Donald Hoffman, please take the spot. And thank you, Jenny, for being willing to do that.
I spoke to him on Monday, and it was marvelous. We got on so well together, and he's got such an incredible knowledge of physics and maths, as well as cognitive science, and neuroscience. So it will be a really good meeting, that one. Really good session.
Yes, yeah, going to be great. So yes, Noni, that will be online. It's free, and the way we pay for it is people buy replays, and so it helps to pay to put the conferences together. But it'll be available. It's September 16th through the 18th. And we'll post a registration here when it's open. It'll be open in the next few days, and we'll put it out on Teachers of God. I think it goes out on Monday, but you'll see a registration for it. And moving along, we're at the bottom of page 96. After the questioner says, "But I experience time." And then Rupert says, awareness only knows now.
Yes.
So it sort of establishes and you've heard this often. I mean, many of you have heard this. It's the now, and it's the now. So it's never then or when. It's always now.
It's so easy to check that for yourself. It's really so obvious.
Yeah.
It's, in a way, it's quite strange that we place so much emphasis on the past and the future.
Yeah. Rupert says in this paragraph just below the question, if we understand and feel ourselves to be ever-present awareness, or the fact of simply being aware, before it is qualified by experience, we will feel that we are always the same ageless self. We will feel that we are always here and now, and that all experience flows through us without changing, aging, or harming us in any way.
Yes.
There it is.
And then there's lovely discussion about how when people get older, they sometimes become more radiant. And he says, knowing being aware or awareness itself is the only element of experience that always remains the same. The feeling that we never get older or that we've always been the same person is an intuition of this truth. In fact, it's more than an intuition. It is a taste of our eternity, the taste of our ever-present, ageless, changeless, untarnished self.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. I have an interesting little story that goes with this. When I was about 45 years old, I was leading a group of youngsters when one of my kids was a teenager, and we were on some kind of a retreat, and the 18-year-old boys were going to race around the building we were in and get some kind of a special position in the event, whoever came in the door first. And I thought I was 45 to 50 years old, and I thought, I can beat their ass. And so I got in, and I'm trying to outrun these 18-year-olds, and they're hurtling over 3-foot high walls. And oh my God, I came hurtling over this 3-foot high wall. I forgot that I was 49, 48, and that I had bad knees. Man, I landed. I really messed up. I just wiped out on the ground, forgetting that the age of the bodysuit. So I had a real experience. I had to have knee surgery after that. But it was complete ignorant. I completely forgot my age. And so that was a funny story. And it's very relative to this experience of forgetting, that you're a bodysuit that's 50 years old.
Yes.
Anyway, that was a funny.
Then there's the question, but I'm well more and more often, and obviously as we get older, that's what happens. Rupert explains it's not myself that's unwell, it's just the body mind that's not operating correctly. And I think of it like my car. You get a mechanical breakdown, or you might have a crash, or the engine management system goes wrong. This is a kind of computer in the car, so it can easily do that. And then you take it to the garage, and quite a lot of things can actually get repaired. But eventually it's beyond repair. And the body mind is programmed to protect itself as best it can. So, for example, fear of present danger or the experience of pain are part of its protection mechanisms. And we're the managers of our body mind, just like I'm the manager of my car. And we look after it as best we can, just as we look after our car. But ultimately, everything that comes into existence must eventually go out of existence. And this applies equally to mountains, planets, stars, solar systems. It's absolutely natural. But being or reality remains. And that's what we are, essentially. Our body minds came into existence and will go out of existence. But we didn't come into existence and won't go out of existence.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things that I think of when I read a question and then a reply like this, like Rupert says, does awareness ever say I am sick? You have to look at that. Does the body ever say I am sick? No. It is the mind that claims I am sick. But even that claim is just a thought. Can a thought be sick? Can a sensation or a perception be sick? No. Sickness is the ultimate analysis, a concept. And this understanding is the ultimate healing. Not a cure that will heal us in the future, but a cure that leads us directly to that in ourself, which is already and inherently free of sickness and death, irrespective of the condition of the mind and body. And for me, bodysuits gets older. I still like to do physical things. I like to build things as a carpenter, and I like to work on things. I like to fix. I like to stay busy outside a lot. I just learned I have carpal tunnel thing, and what I use is the understanding to be established as the thing that's not a bodysuit sensation. I like to use the understanding to as a reminder when the symptom is present or reveals itself, brings my attention to it. I like to move back to that which is aware of the experience as a, I don't know, it seems to be a really solid reminder that I'm not the experience, and even though the experience is occurring, I am that which is aware of the experience. And I think as the bodysuit gets older and has things happen, it's a I don't know, it feels like a really a good place for abiding and being right there.
Yes. You can create, particularly if the body is feeling unwell, then you can create a distance between what you really are and that sense of unwellness. And equally, it can work the other way too. You can include that sense of unwellness and include what you are in everything that you're perceiving at the moment. So there's no focusing on a particular pain in the body or whatever is going on in the body. That's just seen as part of the whole, part of your entire experience, and you just allow all of it to be exactly as it is. It's often when we're, if we're focusing on a pain, say, I've got a headache, but I've got to do all this work, and you just say, perhaps if I just rest, and perhaps if I just stop focusing on my headache, just allow things to be exactly as they are, then it will diminish a bit, and then maybe I'll be able to get on with my work.
Yeah. There are great tools that are available as a result of this understanding, and I'm so grateful to know these things. And I want to mention on the board, Rana says, I like all experience flows through us. Yes, all experience is just it's just a flow or a passing cloud, and we're the awareness of that experience. And someone mentioned about the registration for the conference. We'll put the registration up on in the chat next Wednesday when you come. You may get it in an email. If you're not in the which most of our book study people have had the of you all that are here and that watch or listen to the replay that are not in our newsletter for the Teachers of God Foundation. You don't get all of the invitations, so but you will get a registration link for the conference. And some of you may not know that we're having an India trip. We have a trip in December that's going to India on the south trip for 10 days, and then a north trip to India for 10 days. And we haven't included that in any of the mailings because you've opted out of it. But if anyone is interested in that India tour, we have 4 spots left, 1 to the south and 3 to the north. You can email me at billfreeonline@gmail.com. I'll send you a link to it so you can have more information about it. But you have been opted out of the regular newsletter, so you wouldn't know about it. And the things that we put on, that's what the newsletter's for. It's just to keep you informed of new events that we do with Pure Presence conferences, or this India thing is something that I did. I met someone at a Rupert Spira retreat who does the tours, and I said, I know a lot of people that would love to go to India. I want to go. And so we're going to have this Sacred India tour that's going to happen from December 1st to the 22nd. And if you're interested, we have 4 spots left. And I think we're at the end of our time for this chapter 12. Do you have any other final comments, Jenny, or anyone?
I think, well, just going back to Rumi at the beginning, psychological suffering arises first as a thought, and then it affects the body. We can't choose our thoughts, so we can't stop our thoughts. But the more we spend our time doing what we love, being knowingly myself, responding to our love of truth by reading spiritual books or listening to spiritual teachers, then our body minds are gradually reprogrammed, and that's automatic. So psychological suffering then arises less frequently, and we begin to feel at ease with the aging process of our body minds.
Very good. A very good note to end this chapter. And thank you, Jenny, for being our co-host this week. And thank you all for your great interactions for this. Let's see. Oh, William Price. Why go to India? It's on my bucket list. I want to go to Ramana Maharshi's ashram. I want to go to New Delhi. I want to go to where the Beatles ashram was, and Anandamaya, Rishikesh. It's on my bucket list. So I definitely, I want to do it while this bodysuit can still move around and do things like that. So thank you all for being here, and love joining with you this week, and we'll see you next week.